Welcome to Grizz's workshop. This great lummox is Grizz.
Not an expert or an exemplar of safety.
Punch it!
Every year since I started woodworking, I've made my friend Will a birthday and a Christmas present. This year, I've made him a side table. Mainly because last year I made this side table for his wife, and he liked it a lot. And I've known Will now for like over 30 years, and the thing we have in common the most, we both love classic movies. And our favourite by far is Star Wars. Both big Star Wars fans. So I know his favourite is Han Solo, and because his favourite ship is the Millennium Falcon. So I like making him things for Christmas and for his birthday because they're things I'm interested in. I also know if I made it for myself, I'd have nowhere to put it. So I'm making a Millennium Falcon resin side table. Now the side table is going to be the same pretty much as the side table I made last year, and the same as the video I've already put out. That's why I'm not running through what I'm doing in order to make the legs, because they're the same as my previous video. But if you haven't watched that, please go and look for the Stave side table. I'll go into more detail there. But as you can see, I'm building the legs here now. I'm attaching them to the base, and the base will then be attached to the top. So here I am reenacting myself cutting a circle out in my pencil jig, and I use that to trace round, so I've got two almost semicircle bits of wood. So now I've cut them out, I want to put an edge on that flat side, and this is me reenacting me doing that on one part before I eventually do it for real on the next part. Off to the spindle sander with it, just to get on the inside there. Now the idea is for it to be like a canyon or a ravine in space where the Millennium Falcon is flying. So once I've sanded the inside, I'm then going to glue it to the base. Now for a trick to remove the clamps quickly, all YouTubers know. Isn't that amazing? Now back to the circle cutting bandsaw jig. I trim the edges off so they're nice and flush, and off screen I've stapled some of this plastic to the outside of that circle, ready for the pour. Now this plastic, it's like a floor protection you can get. A lot of the tradespeople use. I find it very good for keeping the epoxy in. You see, I've made a pour of black and there's a little bit of blue behind it, and I always pour in a little bit of clear or transparent resin, knowing that the coloured mica resin, that will always be a bit heavier. So I've got it slightly angled so it's just behind the Millennium Falcon. I can control it a little bit. It's very difficult to do. You've got to get just the right amount of clear first of all. But I keep going back and I keep moving it and touching it, making sure it doesn't flow. Heating it with the heat gun so there are no bubbles. And you should be able to see now it's getting a bit more gloopy. This is after it's set. Just want to have another layer on top. Again, this is transparent. It's not completely clear. It's got a slight blue tinge to it because all epoxy yellows. But if you put colour in there, you don't really notice so much. Now I'm making a flattening jig here. Just using some aluminium trim. That's an L shape. Put on either side of a board. And then I make a sled that runs between the two with aluminium and plywood. Now I would actually change this and take the plywood out and put 18mm straight in there rather than having this thin plywood in there. It was a bit too flexible for me. It did the job. Just some battens in order to keep it on the rails. Just flattening the bottom here, there was a bit of resin and silicone spill on the bottom, but not much. You can see now I'm just going down ever so gradually with the router bit. And it looks like I'm ruining it here, but I'm telling you, it wasn't flush, so it needed it doing. It'd take much longer to do it with a sander, and it probably wouldn't look any good. So I finished, back to the spindle sander to even out the side. And again, there's some silicone I need to remove from the side. Yeah, that's the only downside to using silicone. But once that was done, I put a chamfer on the bottom. Gives it a slightly thinner profile, and also it's got a pine substrate on here whilst the top's oak. So I do kind of want to hide the pine as much as I can. So first of all, I'll do the chamfer with the router here, but then I'll move to the spindle sander just to narrow it a little bit more. When I've done that, I'll do a round over on the top, make it nice and smooth. And then we start with the sanding. starting from 80 grit, working my way up very slowly to 10,000 grit, which is more polished than grit. After around 400, I go from using the sander to doing it all by hand. Just adding water to remove the sawdust, make sure it doesn't scratch the top, and also it helps when we get down to the up to the higher grits. You should be able to see it's getting clearer now as time goes on. It took me a while to find Millennium Falcon small enough and detailed enough for the job. This was found in an antique shop, and it was £7 for 3 micro machines. So I had to paint it to make it look better, weather it, put all sorts of washes on there, and it looks quite good at the end. After my final sand, put some wax paste on and some acrylic polish down the middle. This is resin wax paste that's going on the wood. British Museum use it apparently, Renaissance wax. It's nice. It smells a bit petrol-y, but it's a good polish. Overall, I was very pleased with the result. I think the finish on the epoxy table looks fantastic. It's clear as glass. I can't see any bubbles. Whole thing's very, very smooth. Please let me know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments below.
All right, shall we punch it?
I asked my mate Will what he thought of it, and he had this to say.
Well, I said, wow, you see, the whole thing was made completely out of rubber. I'm afraid I was very drunk.